course, Dusty comes in, and you get to know Dusty not in a supervisor role or as your boss.
Just as
he's
a guy.
Just one of the boys. Please, he's the best.
So talk to me about what everybody really wants to talk about, and we've talked for 20 minutes now and not addressed it. Polka dots. Where does this come about? What's the meeting like when somebody first says polka dots?
It was no meeting. It was a TV taping, and Dusty was in the ring. And Vince, I'm at gorilla position watching the monitor. Vince is standing in front of me. Pat Patterson's nearby. And Vince is watching the monitor, says, you know, I see him in polka dots. I'm like, what? Dusty, polka dots. Giant yellow polka dots. We're looking at him like, okay, you know, all right. You see him in polka dots. And Dusty comes back through the curtain, having had his match. Dream, let me talk to you real quick. And you see the two of them kind of having a little powwow off to the side, and Vince is doing his hand gestures, polka dots, and there's polka dots everywhere, yellow polka dots. And God, it's going to set you apart. And Dusty kind of looking at him like, are you ribbing me, baby? And Vince, serious as a heart attack, polka dots. And polka dots were born. Next TV, Dusty had black tights with yellow polka dot everywhere. He had his little shirt made with polka dots, and that's where they came from. Not a rib. It was something to enhance him, to make his dress and everything about him be a little bit different than what he had been in before. You know, the black tights and the DR on his tights. So, no, it wasn't a rib. It wasn't some conceived meeting. Let's make fun of Dusty. It was a vision that Vince had and acted on.
So at SummerSlam in 1989, he wrestles the Honky Tonk Man. That on paper doesn't seem like a match that would have ever happened, but it did. How did that match come about? Do you recall?
You know what? I really don't, but I do recall the sing-off that we did with Honky Tonk Man doing his, I'm just a Honky Tonk Man, and Dusty was like, you know, baby, I can sing better than him. I'm putting his, and he was serious.
Sure.
He said, let me sing. I do a great rendition of Johnny B. Bad. And we brought a band into the studio in Stamford, Connecticut, and we had Dusty do Johnny B. Bad, and he was horrible. But midway through it, I'm sitting there and I go, hey, what if we change the words from Johnny B. Bad to Dusty B. Bad? And that kind of threw him off a little bit, but that's what we went with, you know, with Dusty doing Dusty B. Bad in the studio. And it was absolutely hilarious. And I would have to say that was the only time that Honky Tonk Man sounded better than anybody singing.
Well, and it's hard
a lot of fun.
It's hard to imagine, you know, now because he's really a caricature in hindsight, but Honky Tonk Man had serious heat. I mean, he was a hated heel back then. So that was a make sense program.
He had heat not only in the audience, he had heat in the locker room. Everywhere he went, he had heat. Now, Honky Tonk Man, he was a great heel. He was just so easy to work with, and he loved the heat, which a great heel does.
So let's look at his other big matches when he's there. We roll on to WrestleMania, his very first WrestleMania, and of course, Dusty's credited with creating Starrcade, which was the NWA's premiere show, and now he's finally at a WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania 6. It's in Toronto, and he is wrestling the Macho King. How does that come about? This is another match where you just seemingly, what is going on? Here's a WWF guy, and now here's really a guy we all identify as an NWA guy, and maybe, you know, a year or two earlier, this would have been a dream match because both of those guys were near the top of their game, and now, you know, one's in polka dots and one's wearing a crown. What happened?
It was what you just said. It was two of the top stars in the game. It was Randy and Dusty, and the characters, the Macho King looking down on everybody, and the guys that the Macho King's looking down upon are the common people. And you got the leader of the common people, the common man, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And you got Miss Sapphire. And you got Queen Sherry. It was a match made in heaven. And it was, I'll tell you a great story, because I had been out with them during the summer. And it was a mixed tag team match with the Macho King and Queen Sherry against Dusty and Sapphire. In Dusty and Sapphire's corner was Miss Elizabeth. In Savage's corner was Brother Love.
Oh, wow.
So we did these matches all around the Horn, and it was, without a doubt, some of the most fun I have ever had in the business. Because Dusty and I would travel together a lot during that time. I either traveled with Randy and Liz, or I traveled with Dusty. And, oh, my God, we just had a blast together, just up and down the roads and having a lot of fun. But when we first started this match, we laid out the match. Randy liked to lay things out. We laid out the match, and Dusty dictated a lot of it, if you will. And the match, in short, kind of consisted of myself, Randy, and Sherry running into Dusty's elbow. Dream didn't move. The elbow just stayed up in position, and our heads found it.
I see.
And I am having an absolute blast every night. Just working with Dusty, having fun, working with Randy and Sherry and everybody. I mean, we are having a blast. And we're kind of doing the same thing every night, you know, and we're doing this for about 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And we finally get to Hamilton, Ontario. And we got a double shot. So we're doing a show in the afternoon and another show that night in Toronto. Well, Pat Patterson is the agent for both shows. And Pat has not yet seen our match. He says, "What have you guys been doing?" He says, "Well, you know, we'll show you tonight." So we go out, or during the day, the first show. So we go out and we have the match, and we come back, and we're like, "What'd you think?" And he says, "How are you guys getting to Toronto?" I said, "Well, we actually were going to ride with somebody." He says, "Ride with me." So this is Pat Patterson telling Randy and myself and Liz to ride with him.
Right.
So we get in the car. He had a limousine, and we get in the car, and on the way there, Pat tells us it was one of the worst matches he had ever seen in his life. He says, "I hated it. Oh my God, Randy, you're a WWF champion, and you're out there and you're bumping all over for him, and you're not getting anything in, and he makes you look like a piece of garbage." And essentially, he's getting Randy fired up. Because he's like telling him, he's abusing you, and now you're bumping, and you're making, he doesn't do anything, and you're a champion, and everybody, they love you, and Brother Love, what the hell? He goes, "You get in for the match, you get in one time only. You got heat. Why you go in and bump all over for him?" We think about it, and Pat's telling us everything that's wrong with the match that we laid out that we loved.
Right.
And he's making sense. He's making a lot of sense. But to be just real blunt, man, we were fans of Dusty, and we were having a good time working with the Dream and doing all of his stuff. So he says, "Let's come up with a different match." So we come up with a completely different match with basically Randy controlling the majority of the match and getting heat on Dusty, and Dusty making his comeback, and Brother Love gets in at the very end, and Dusty gets one shot at Brother Love, and that's the finish, and we're out of there. So we get to Toronto, and we have this match. Randy and I have this whole match laid out. I mean, we've got it completely laid out. And Randy says, he's fired up. I mean, he's just all bowed up. He's ready to go. And he's like, "Where's Virgil? Where is he?" And he hadn't gotten there yet. "Let me know as soon as he gets in, and we need to talk to him." So Dusty comes in, puts his bag down, And they say, hey, Dusty's in the back dressing room over there. So we go marching in, and Randy goes over to Dusty. Says, Dream, we need to talk to you for a minute in here. So we walk around the corner, go into the shower. That's where you had all your private meetings, is in a shower or bathroom stall. So we get in, and Randy starts off by going, we were talking to Pat about the match, and he didn't like it, and we had some changes and things like that, and we're gonna make some changes tonight. So, Brother Love, go ahead and tell him what the match is.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
And I'm looking at Randy like, why me? And go ahead. And so I lay the match out to Dusty, and Dusty is got his back against the wall in the shower and is looking at me with these giant bug eyes. Doesn't say a word throughout the entire spiel. And we're finished. And Randy's like, okay, what do you think? And Dream just looks at it and says, baby, this is kind of like somebody going in and grabbing Babe Ruth and pulling him in the shower and telling him how to hit the ball, if you will. And there's silence, and Randy says, well, babe, that's what we're doing tonight. See you in the ring. And it was just classic Dusty, and we went out, we tore it up, but brother, okay, babe. And from that point on, he was babe to us, and
that's amazing.
Every night we would go out and go, hey, babe, this is what we're doing, baby. But that was just typical Dusty.
So you mentioned a minute ago, Sapphire. I'm really struggling with this. How is this not a rib? Sapphire as a valet? First of all, who is she? Where do y'all find her? Whose idea was it? And then what was Dusty's reaction?
It's a lot of questions. I got a question for you first.
Okay.
Why do you think Sapphire is a rib?
Okay. The valets in wrestling at the time are Missy Hyatt, Miss Elizabeth. Is there another one?
Okay, let's take a Missy Hyatt. I don't know if she was active at the time, but she may have been with Eddie Gilbert at the time. Look at Eddie Gilbert. Look at Missy Hyatt. Look at Miss Elizabeth. Look at Randy Savage. So are you telling me that when you compare those and you're looking at a female counterpart to the male counterpart, the common man would have a common woman by his side? He wouldn't have some beautiful stripper-esque gorgeous girl by his side. He'd have a common woman. He'd have a common lady by his side.
So are you going to suggest that Sapphire was not a rib?
Absolutely not. Sapphire was there to enhance Dusty and the American Dream and the common man. That wasn't a rib. Again, I keep going to the same point. We didn't do things for a rib, and especially invest that much money on something and a character. Oh, let's just have fun with him. No, it was there to enhance that character and make him more relatable. Was
there any thought put into her being black? Was that strategic?
Well, it was, I don't know that it necessarily was, we need a black woman. No, we needed a common woman. And Juanita, who was Sapphire, was a former lady wrestler from Kansas City that had, she had wrestled around the circuit as Princess something or other. But Terry Garvin knew of a woman, and when we started talking about we need a common woman, and he says, I've got just the person, and it would help if she had taken bumps before and different things like that, but we didn't want a striking beauty, if you will, not to say that Sapphire wasn't beautiful in her own way, but we were looking for just a common woman, and she fit that bill.
Who suggested her?
Who suggested the character Sapphire?
Sapphire specifically. Who said, hey, I know a lady?
That was Terry Garvin.
Okay.
Who came up with her, yeah. Who found her.
Who in the meeting said, we need a common woman?
That was Vince.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now here's the big one. What did Dusty think about working with her?
I don't know that Dream was necessarily thrilled with working with Sapphire. I don't think that he felt he needed any enhancement. So I think Dusty kind of looked at her as a handicap versus an enhancement.
Come on, man. Let's run a timeout and talk about how full of shit Bruce is for a minute. Polka dots. And don't get me wrong, I know you guys occasionally tag me in old pictures of Dusty, and some magazine or program or something had him wearing a polka dot head bandana. Come on though, dude. That was not cool. Dusty wanted to be cool. He wanted to be the badass. It's hard to be a badass in polka dots, but somehow Dusty pulled it off. But the assertion that it was not a rib and it was to set him apart, crazy. I also loved hearing Bruce's first Pat Patterson impression on the show and him talking about fixing their match. But the idea that we get to hear Bruce do the Macho Man impression in the same episode. I mean, look at how heavy we are on impressions in this first show. And the whole Babe Ruth story with Macho Man is still one of my favorite Something to Wrestle stories. It's just a fun episode, man. You get to hear Vince, you get to hear Dusty, you get to hear Macho, you get to hear Pat. There's so many impressions. Oh, and before we go back to the show, Sapphire not being a rib. Come on, man. Listen, great lady. Loved it. I was a kid, didn't understand it, thought it was cool. But clearly when everyone was looking for, the next Miss Elizabeth or the next Missy Hyatt, Sapphire was a departure from that. But somehow, again, Dusty made it work. And I guess it's kind of fun to hear Bruce try to put the screws to me a little bit. So here we go. Let's get back to Dusty Rhodes and the WWF.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.